Look at you, Jake.
Thank you.
You look amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it took a lot of work.
It's been 2 years since you were here. Last time you were here, you were struggling with fentanyl, right?
Yeah, very heavily. I was doing, I think, multiple grams a day at some points. Like, obviously, like when I didn't have enough money, I would be in withdrawal or whatever, and I wouldn't be able to get as much. But I think at my height, I was doing like estimated about 2 grams a day. I would go through about 10 grams a week. So that was a lot of money, quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I was doing pretty bad.
And what got you to change your direction?
So I didn't want to for like the longest time. Like I really just, part of me wanted to, like obviously like I didn't want to live the way I was living, but I wasn't gonna stop like for no one. I wasn't gonna stop like for any reason really. I thought I was gonna die using it, and honestly, like at the time, that was what I wanted. Like I didn't want to keep living, and but what got me sober was just kept getting worse. I started like, okay, so let me tell you the actual story. I went into withdrawals really bad, and I had to go to the hospital because it's pretty embarrassing, but I went into withdrawals so bad that like my dad found me like incoherent in a puddle of my own shit and piss. And so yeah, he was obviously like, okay, you need to go to the hospital. And so I went to the hospital. I was in there for like a week, and then...
This is when you were going through withdrawals?
Yes, I went in for withdrawals. And then they started giving me Suboxone. I got out. I relapsed like immediately. I think it was the same day. And then, so the same thing happened. I ran out of money. I went to withdrawals pretty bad. And then I went in the hospital a second time, and my parents told me like, okay, you're gonna go straight from the hospital to rehab. And obviously I didn't want that like at all. I just wanted to keep using fentanyl.
What's going through your mind at that point? That you're just so self-destructive. You're trying to kill yourself, basically.
Yeah, I am, 100%. I'm trying to kill myself. I didn't want to live. At the time, I didn't, it's really sad because like I had friends that have killed themselves, and like I've seen how it affects people. And I didn't care about how it would affect my family because I was just in so much pain that
do you think that was your brain chemistry that was just making you act that way, or was it something going on in your life that caused it? Or what?
I think it's both for sure. I mean, I've been diagnosed with depression, but like now I live, I would say, without depression. I think a lot of it was circumstantial.
Like
So
what were the circumstances that were so terrible?
I was extremely lonely. I would hang out with friends very rarely. And I mean, I didn't have a girlfriend, and then that's like a really shallow reason, but like I was pretty lonely, and I was so used to having a girlfriend.
You don't kill yourself over that. You just get a girl.
Exactly. Yeah, but I was so used to just like treating my pain with drugs. Like it's all I've done since I was like 13. It's the way I handled things. So like that was what I thought to do. I thought to like I last time, as soon as we broke up, I just went straight to fentanyl. But yeah. So to get back to the story, I went to rehab. I was in withdrawal at the rehab, and like they weren't giving me any Suboxone for it or like anything. So like once I got my phone back after like 5 days, which I think is a terrible way to do it. I don't think you should give them their phone back, to be honest, because I got picked up immediately. I had someone I knew that was in the same situation as I was pick me up, and I kind of fucked them over. Like I asked for a certain amount of money for a certain amount of Xanax. I got half the amount of Xanax. I gave them most of it. I kept some of it, and then I got fentanyl with the rest. And that night, my parents were extremely worried. Like they didn't want me to go home, and I didn't care. I just wanted to get high. And so I got my fentanyl, and I went to my house using the excuse that can I at least see my cat? And I came to the door and I told my dad, like, hey, like I already have fentanyl. Like I'm gonna either use it in the house or I'm gonna use it outside of the house. And very luckily, he let me come in the house, because it would have been extremely bad if he didn't, because I overdosed that night, and my heart stopped and I went blue. And my dad had to do CPR on me. My mom had to call the ambulance. I can't imagine how traumatic that was for them.
I feel terrible for your parents.
I can't even imagine. I feel so bad that I did that to them. But so I went to the hospital again that night. Got out, relapsed the same day again. I didn't want to stay sober whatsoever. So I would just tell the doctors, like, yeah, I'm gonna stay on Suboxone. I'm gonna not relapse. I'd get out same day I'd relapse. And so it kept going on like that for a while. And then I went to the hospital again, and for same thing, for withdrawals. And when I got out, like, my dad had decided, like, oh, I'm gonna take you on a road trip, so like I wouldn't be able to, access fentanyl. And so we said we were gonna go like the next day. Got out, bought fentanyl immediately, and I was taking Suboxone at the same time, and I didn't know like how they worked together. I knew something about precipitated withdrawals, but I didn't know exactly how it worked. And so I went to precipitated withdrawals, and so I would just like go between being in withdrawal from fentanyl to back on fentanyl, and like it was just like a cycle. And then eventually I agreed to go on the road trip a few days later, and it wasn't a good road trip. I ruined it for him, and I feel really bad about that. But about 3 days in, I ran out of fentanyl, and I had taken Suboxone because I didn't want to feel the withdrawals, and I wasn't thinking about going into precipitated withdrawals. And
what are precipitated withdrawals?
Okay, so if you're on Suboxone, what it does is it like takes it out of your system immediately. Like, it blocks the receptors, so none of the fentanyl left over in your system can get absorbed, if I'm remembering correctly. That's how it works. So like, it completely puts you in withdrawals like immediately, like as soon as it kicks in, like full-blown withdrawals, but like they're worse than regular withdrawals by far. Like, precipitated withdrawals are like withdrawals on crack. Is extreme. It's worst situation I've ever been in. And so I was in precipitated withdrawals, and me and my dad were driving to Oregon, and I already had Xanax on me, like, because I knew eventually this was gonna happen, and I wanted to like mitigate how bad it was, and I couldn't find the Xanax. So like, I had my dad look for it for me because I was just like in such a frenzied state that I didn't really want to like just take my time and look for it. And he found it, and I asked him to give me like 8, and he was like, no, I'll give you 2. And we started arguing about it because I knew that 2 wouldn't do anything for me, because that 2 is what I took on a regular night when I wasn't in withdrawals, and 8 would like make them manageable. And we started arguing about it, going back and forth, and I got suicidal. And also I was, it was manipulation, trying to get him to give me what I wanted. Like, I can see that now. At the time, I was just thinking of what I wanted. But I told him I'm going to kill myself if he doesn't give me the amount of Xanax I want. And he just stared at me. And like, so I got the knife and I put it up to my throat. And he wasn't like, he was just slowly walking towards me. So like, obviously like I wasn't going to kill myself that way. So I just like slit my throat like a little bit. Like, there's a scar there now, just to show him like I was serious, which I kind of wasn't. And so he just kept walking slowly towards me. And at that point, I think I did decide I really wanted to die. Like, so I like dove for like the knives, and he tried to stop me, and we wrestled over the knife, and it cut his hand like super bad, like from like here to like right here, like deep. So he called the cops, and they came, and luckily I was in Oregon, because if I was in a red state, I think I would have been completely fucked, like drugs wise, and the whole situation. I don't think they would have taken it the way they did. So I was completely honest with them. I told them exactly what happened, because I realized like how bad this would look for me if I came out and like wouldn't say a word and my dad's hand is just sliced open. And so they took me to the hospital. They were trying to admit me to like a psych ward, and I just said I didn't want to kill myself over and over, and they let me out the next morning. And so my dad had been there all night getting his hand stitched up, and he, when they told me I could leave, I got my clothes back, I got my phone back. so I called him, and he was just like done, like fully done. Like he was just gonna leave me there, and that's like understandable, honestly. But he was just gonna leave me there, and so I convinced him to pick me up, and he did, and he wouldn't say a word to me. He just drove like home, and I called my mom, and like they talked, and my dad was like, "You're going to rehab or you're gonna be homeless," and I was like, "Fuck, okay." And I found a way to, use again. I told them like, "Hey, I'll go to rehab if you let me do fentanyl for 10 days." And with some arguing back and forth between my mom and my dad agreed. And, so I used fentanyl for 10 days. We went to Texas because that's where I went to rehab at. That's where I'm staying now. And about the second day I was there, I think my dad told me, "All right, we're going." So I agreed to go after some back and forth. And so I went there. It was about an hour and a half drive, I think. I did fentanyl on the back of the car as soon as I got in the car, so I just slept the whole way there. It was my dad and my aunt, and they dropped me off. They were crying, and I was just emotionless because I was on Xanax and fentanyl, so and also I did like multiple grams of fentanyl in the back of the car when I got there in the parking lot. So I went through the process to like get into the rehab, the admittance process, and I did that. And I went to rehab and slept the first night. First morning I woke up, I was in withdrawal already. And so I went through that process, the withdrawal process. They gave me Suboxone, I think the third day, because they didn't want to give me precipitated withdrawals. And it didn't really help much, maybe like 10%, and then they upped it, maybe like 20%, they upped it. I think it was about 45%. And so it made it just to where I could manage it. At that rehab, they wanted you to feel it. I think that's a good thing. I don't think you should completely not feel it, because you have to remember like how bad it was, and you don't want to ever go back there again. And so once I got out of detox, I started working the program. At first, I wasn't planning on taking it seriously, but on the second day I was there, or it might have been the third, I was still in pretty bad withdrawals. Someone sat me down. I really appreciate him. If he sees this, I appreciate you for sitting me down and being like, "Hey man, like I'm 20 years older than you. Like, I wish I took it seriously when I was your age. I was in the opposite situation. I flew to California and I went to rehab and I didn't take it seriously, and here I am again." And he talked to me for like 45 minutes, just like telling me like, take it seriously, care about your family, like how the people in your life are affected by this, like don't hang out with the people that don't take it seriously here, all this stuff. And like up to that point, I hadn't gotten like a stern talking to really about it. Like, everyone was kind of like somewhat coddling me. And I needed that. And I started thinking about it. And once I got out of withdrawal, I started, doing the rehab stuff, taking it seriously. I found my higher power, which was crazy for me because I wasn't very religious at that point. I was not religious at all. So I found a higher power. I connected with it. I started working the steps. I finished the 12th step like right before I left, which was 3 months. I was in there for 3 months. And I'm very happy I stayed for 3 months because it took some convincing, but I think it was necessary. And so I got out. I met some good friends there. I got out. I went to sober living. It was a very strict sober living. I didn't have my phone for the first month either. I had to do some stuff like there was a 3-house system. There was in each house I had to like meet the requirements to move to the next house. So I did those. I started going to meetings. At first I was going to meetings every day, and then slowly as I progressed through the houses, there was less and less meetings required. So by the end, I think it was 1 meeting required. And so I was just doing that, and then, I graduated and I moved to a step down sober living. And yeah, that's what I've been doing. It's been rough. It's been really hard, actually. Probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But it was so worth it. Like the first family day I had at rehab, my family was sobbing, like absolutely sobbing, like in hysterics. Because like that's the first time they've seen me doing good since I was like 12. And even at 12, I wasn't doing good, but like, genuinely good. And like they thought I was gonna die because I'd overdosed like quite a few times at that point. So like obviously like that's an extremely emotional moment for them. And yeah, like I'm just so happy with my life now. Like it's definitely the happiest I've ever been. Like obviously sobriety isn't like completely perfect, but I've gone through some things. I've lost some friends. I hadn't lost friends before going to rehab because like I didn't really hang out with anyone who used like hard drugs. Like I just got drugs and that was it. But like, meeting good friends in rehab and sober living, I lost 2 of them. I hope to lose no more, but how the statistics go. So,
Do you feel stable now?
very stable. Definitely the most stable I've ever felt in my life. I don't even, I was taking meds at first, but eventually like I was taking them not on such a regular basis. I would forget to take them. And I realized like, hey, I don't think I need these. And I don't think anyone should get off their psych meds like that. I think it was a bad idea, but it worked for me. I got off them and I'm perfectly fine. I'm the same I was when I was on them. If not, I'm a little bit more like here. So yeah, I mean that was my story from last time to right now.
And you seem happier.
Oh yeah, this is the first time I've been genuinely happy in my life. At least even when I was on drugs, like there was times when I was happy, but it wasn't genuine, it was like caused by the substance. So yeah, I'm really happy now.
Looking back at your past years, what do you see about your state of mind, your thinking?
I think that I really kept a victim mentality. Like I felt so bad for myself, and something I realized in rehab was like everyone here has gone through the same or not worse shit than me. And it really put it into perspective for me. Like I felt so bad for myself like every day, like thinking like how could God let this happen to me, all this stuff. And like, like everyone's gone through shit. Like I've gone through some pretty intense stuff, but a lot, like 99% of the people in rehab I was with had also gone through pretty intense stuff, if not worse. So I think the perspective change is what really helped. I stopped looking at myself as a victim and looking at myself as blessed because we had to do a gratitude list every day. So I realized like how blessed I am to like get this opportunity and like to have loving parents and like a sister who's like always supported me and good friends. And
your family seems great.
Yeah, yeah. My dad took a long time to like finally be like, we're done. And to be honest, like I would say I wish he did it sooner, but like, like I think it happened exactly the way it was supposed to. I'm really happy with my life right now. And I think if it happened in California, it wouldn't have been the same. Like I'm happy it happened exactly the way it did. But yeah, my family's been amazing through all this.
What do you think the original cause of all of this self-destructiveness was?
I mean, it was a few things like, like I have depression and I have trouble socializing and it was, but as an addict, like something they say is like I never felt comfortable in my own skin. And when I used, like I finally felt like I could live. And that's how it really was with me. Like, like I always felt uncomfortable, especially around people. And when I would use, I would just be able to like live and I'd feel comfortable in my own skin. And eventually it became to self-medicate to cope with pain I was in. I've gone through some trauma, like I've lost friends to suicide. I've had some sexual trauma. And just not being a happy kid. So like there was quite a few reasons, but I think the number one reason is because I'm an addict and that's just what addicts do.
Were there addicts in your family?
Yes. Not on my dad's side, but on my mom's side. Both of her brothers have died of the addiction. Her one brother died of a heroin overdose and her other brother died of alcoholism related complications. So I'm really happy that I didn't, end up that way because it sucked looking back. Like obviously at the time I probably didn't think about it, but looking back it sucks like that I did that to my grandparents, having them have to see me go down the exact same path that their 2 sons did. I can't imagine what that did to them either. So, yeah, I'm just really happy that I get to make them proud finally.
I'll ask you 2 questions. You can answer them like as one, or you can choose which one to answer. What advice would you give to somebody who's going through what you're going through, or what advice would you give to a family of somebody who's going through what you went through?
Okay, so to someone going through what I'm going through, I would say to, just give it a chance. Like, give sobriety a chance. Like, I think like, like at the end of the day, like you can always go back to using drugs. Like if your life is shitty or sober, which I don't think that will happen, you can always just go back to using drugs. But like, give it like a year. Like, get sober, like go through the withdrawals, like however you got to do it. It's gonna be hard, but like it's so worth it. I promise you. Like, anyone who's gotten sober, like, yeah, we still go through problems, but we're gonna tell you our life's 100 times better. And so give it a chance and just see where your life goes. Like, I think like you'll be very pleasantly surprised with where it ends up. And then for a family, I would say, support them emotionally, but don't enable it. Like, if they're living with you, as hard as it is, like, obviously if they're a minor, it's different, but I would say as hard as it is, like, tell them like, hey, you can't be using drugs in my house. And if you want to get sober, I'll support you. But if you don't, like, you got to do it somewhere else. And, obviously I'm not an expert, but I think that's what I was taught in rehab. Like, you can't be a safety net for them. You can't support them. Like, if they want to go to rehab, yeah, be there for them. But like, and you can still be there for them when they're in their addiction, but don't financially support them. Don't house them, stuff like that. And I know that might seem very harsh, but that's what I was taught. And like, usually that's when people end up wanting help, because if they're still living at their family's house and, they're supported, they don't have any reason to want help, really. Everything's already provided for them. So like, why would they seek help when, you have to reach rock bottom? So I think that's important.
I think your rock bottom was pretty low?
Yeah.
What were you doing for money at your rock bottom?
Illegal activities. Yeah. I don't really want to get too far into it, but yeah. I mean, I never did anything that crazy. Like, I never did any sexual things for money. I'm very happy I didn't.
You're lucky.
But, like, I think if I got desperate enough and I had no other way, it might have been something I did. Withdrawal is such a terrible thing, and I think a lot of people would do absolutely.
Just to give a little perspective, what I've learned is when the withdrawals are so unbelievably difficult,
Yeah.
that you'll do anything.
Absolutely, I probably would have
anything.
Probably would have killed someone.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, if I knew I wasn't going to get caught, if I was given the opportunity to get well, if I ended this person's life, I probably would have done it. Like you said, I think people would do anything to get out of that, because it's honestly the worst experience I've ever gone through in my life, by far. Nothing is compared to it. I broke my leg and I broke a few bones. I would rather snap my leg in half than go through withdrawals 100% of the time.
Really?
Yeah. And also, after, when I was in my sober living, I crashed into a wall on an electric bike. My face got smashed in. I had to get facial reconstructive surgery, and there's a scar right here from they had to open my face up.
When was this?
It was in November, I think.
So since we saw you last.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was in sober living. And I didn't take any painkillers. For my face was smashed in, they had to do facial, it was like a dent right here in my face. There's a metal plate now. And they had to do facial reconstructive surgery and close up the wounds and all that. And I didn't take any painkillers. And I think that's it's not always the same for everyone. Some people can, I guess, but I think it's better for me that I don't. Just no drugs whatsoever. I take caffeine when I go to work. The reason I say I don't drink coffee is because I take a caffeine pill. It's just cheaper for me. And I vape and I smoke cigarettes, but I think it's a far better alternative. The analogy I came up with today actually is that fentanyl is like a 50 cal, and cigarettes are like a BB gun. It's a really different comparison.
Mm-hmm. All right. Jake, thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
It's nice to get a positive one once in a while.
Yeah.
You look great.
Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Even though Soft White Underbelly consists of a lot of videos, it's really still a photography project to me. And if you appreciate the photography, sometimes it's difficult to enjoy it when it's scrolling down the screen, which is the only option I had in this horizontal format on YouTube. So last year we came out with the first Soft White Underbelly book, which is a collection of the best portraits from the thousands of interviews I've done. Each portrait in this book is accompanied by an interesting quote from the person's interview.
Oh my God.
There's more.
Wow. These aren't as bad as I thought. I look like a witch.
I will not be reprinting this book when it sells out. So once it's gone for good. You can order yours at softwhiteunderbelly.org. $125, $150 for a signed copy. And thank you for watching.